Hello, everybody. I'm here with Angela Euell McNair. She is an Erie School Board Director. She is a entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur of multiple businesses in her community. She is a community leader and advocate for the community. Most importantly, she's married. She's a wife and a mother of 5 children. How you doing today, Angie?
Good, and you?
I'm great. Thanks for coming today. We're so glad that you you had time in your schedule to do this with us today. Let's get right into it. So Angie, can you tell us what was childhood like for you? What are some memories of childhood that you have?
Childhood. Well, we all grew up together, so my memories from childhood was running from my house to your house 2 blocks away and running back. I was had my mom and dad was in the household with me, so we lived a pretty good life. Um, I went to public school, went to Deal, and I was raised in church, so that was my whole life was just you know being around my family, going to church, and my schoolwork. So
Angie, do you think? I mean, church is that? Do you think that did that play a significant role in your family or in your upbringing? You think?
yeah, my dad was a pastor, my mom was a missionary, and our grandmother was a person that was strong in the church. Our grandfather was in church. It's just something. My whole family, both on my mom and dad's side, was church people. So it played a huge role. A lot of you know what is coming out me and what I'm producing in the community stems from my background in church. My mom and dad always had me in some type of leadership role, in church, especially when they started their own church, teaching Sunday school and singing solos before my dad preached. So they always kind of, now that I think about it, they always kind of pushed me out front. So I guess that's why I'm able to, as an adult, be bold enough to do some of the things that I do.
So you really didn't know back then that like this stuff would that they were getting you in.
Right, I
Sometimes I
really
know.
didn't even know to right this moment. I'm
Right.
thinking about it like, yeah, they really did push me out front.
Right.
When you give your kids that kind of encouragement, you give them the strength to be a leader. So they always pushed me, and now that I think about it, they really was pushing me into leadership.
It paid off the things
Yeah.
that they pushed you into.
hmm
Um, so tell me about your family a little bit. Did you grow up with both parents, single parent home, siblings?
I grew up with both my parents. They was married for over 40 years. My mom passed in 2017, and my dad passed um, last year in 2020, right after Thanksgiving. But growing up, we lived a pretty good life. I have 2 brothers, 2 older brothers, Harry and Andrew, and then I have a younger sister that's 9 years younger than me, and Mary. So I had, pretty much that little Cosby Show life for the most part. We had our little, rough times here and there. My dad got hurt at work and came off his job. But other than that, they set us up real nice for us to be, productive members in the community. So
What did your parents do for a living? Like, what did your dad do? I know you said he
my
got.
dad worked at Erie Coke. He was a laborer. He made decent money doing that. His house was paid for. We always, had whatever we needed. I remember sometimes where they struggled, but they never really showed us. As an adult now, I know they was probably going through it.
Right.
But when you were a kid, they never let us see it. So I, try to do the same thing for my children. Like
Right.
I try not to let them see it if things are going on. Because I just want to show them that strength. And my mom was a secretary for 18 years out of Edinburgh. Her being a secretary allowed me to finish my bachelor's degree for free. I started off at Pitt, but once I went to Edinburgh, I went for free. So I appreciate her, for her service out at Edinburgh University.
So your parents really did a good job of laying a good foundation and stuff like that for you.
Yep. So anything we ain't doing that we're not supposed to do wasn't their fault. They laid down the foundation very well for us.
Were there some things that you learned from your mother and father? I mean, like, can you tell me like maybe 3 things that you would say these are some things I really learned from my parents?
From my dad, I just learned how to be a hard worker. He would get off work, and come home and cut the grass after work. They really don't make him like him anymore. He paid all the bills. He made sure we had everything we needed. He just showed me how to really grind. He showed me how to really put in the effort to get what we needed. And, he really instilled that to me, like not to ever be lazy. So a lot of people, they always saying, you always busy, you always, but he was that. They were more leaders than I thought. My dad, he worked, he ran a church. Having a church is really a strong leadership position in the community. My mom was a leader in the church, and after she passed, I realized how much of an entrepreneur she was. She wrote books. She sold books that she wrote. People really enjoyed them. A lot of people still ask me about her books she wrote. She was a lot of the things that me and my sister do with business, creating cards and invitations. My mom was really a professional at doing them things, and people, paid her to do it. I guess, subconsciously we picked that up off of her, and some of my entrepreneurial skills actually came from them, the stuff that I saw them doing.
Right. That's great. So I noticed you said, I know you're a mother of 5, and you have children of your own that have some special needs.
Right. So I have my 3 older, and then I have my 2 twins. They are 11. They both have autism. Found out they had autism when they're about 1.5. I have a background in that, so I noticed that they weren't developing they weren't meeting their milestones like they should, and took them. They got tested at the Achievement Center, and they were diagnosed with autism early. Went through the Barber Center, so we have a lot, going on. A lot of advocacy occurs with them. They gave me the strength that pushed me into entrepreneurship, because they were busy little girls, and it's hard to trust people outside of yourself with your children, especially when they don't speak, because neither one of them speak. And that kind of just pushed me towards entrepreneurship more, and to be an advocate more, not just for them, but for all the students, which is one reason that I got on the school board, is because I was having so many interactions with them, and somebody suggested it to me that I do it. And I said, it might be the right thing to do. I got all these kids in public school. I have 2 special needs children. This is the move to make, because I could be a true advocate.
Right. So I was going to ask you, what is that like? You kind of already described it and some of the challenges. Can you give any advice maybe for a mother or parents, couple who has similar kids with autism or other special needs?
Autism, what people need to realize is autism is not something that's going to go away. People always talk about the cure. There is no cure for autism, and the sooner you realize that, the better. There are strategies that you can do. There are mechanisms that work to help them communicate. It's really a social issue for them. That's my 2 are nonverbal, and it's really kind of difficult to have twins. It would be hard enough, I can imagine, for somebody to have 1 child, but to have 2, and they not only have autism, they both have ADHD. So parents out there know how that is, just with ADHD. But they are sweet little girls. I love them. My advice would be, take breaks when you can get it. Take them. Build you a support system of people that you can trust. Because when you have a child with special needs, you can't trust them with everybody. Be very cautious. Be an advocate for your child. Make sure that you are the one that's going to set them up. So, if anything was to happen to you, that you would have some people in place, things in place for your child to be advocated for and taken care of.
I know you have your oldest child is going to college, went to college this year, right? What's that been like for you?
Yeah, it was kind of surreal to see my child go to college. It was a little difficult for her because she has some separation anxiety, and then also for myself, because when you have children with autism and you have older children, they help you a lot. Honestly, she was a big help to me, but I wanted her to get away from here and experience new things. She was a child that sits up under me, so I felt like I needed her to go She wanted to go to IUP, and I supported her in that decision because I just honestly feel like, it's a whole big world out here, and she needed to experience something outside of, dealing with the daily life that was going on here. She loves us. She misses us. We FaceTime each other every day, multiple times a day. But she's doing well, and she's getting her work done. She's sending me her test scores. So I'm really proud of her and excited for her, moving on into adulthood and making it to college, because it's really difficult to get your child there, without becoming a teen mom, without, all of the things that these kids
All the
face
different
today.
barriers and
Yeah, all the
obstacles.
barriers. Yeah, there's a lot of barriers for young black women and young black men that she got past, and she went to public schools, so she wasn't completely sheltered. She was exposed to things, but I'm glad she was able to make the decision to go to school and move on into adulthood in the right way.
I know you have one still in high school, and I know he was kind of like getting into entrepreneurship himself. You want to how did that happen? Was that just something he wanted to do, or?
My son, Julius, he likes to sit under me a lot too. He watches me. He admires me. And I noticed that within him. And he started selling vegetarian burgers. Did very well at all the sales we did. We had a little hiccup with some of the equipment we bought, but we definitely are going to be back up and running. We named it after my dad, Two Tights Veggie Delights, and everybody loves his burgers. So we got a good response, and I could see in him how proud he was of himself, that he was able to do something for himself and earn some money for himself, and also make others happy with the food that he was serving. So I'm definitely going to keep supporting him in doing that. I could see him being a really good entrepreneur, and whatever it is that he wants to do, I will support him. But he has been doing well whenever he does some business, or gets into his ideas and expresses them.
What about your youngest son? He's in what grade is he in?
My youngest son is in 7th grade, and he a big boy. He 12, but he big. But I noticed that he's into graphics, and he actually has learned how to do some graphics designs, like animation, and he was able to create some illustrations for a book that my twins are going to publish. It's called Can You Hear Me? And it's just, speaks a little bit about their autism, but in a children's type style book.
So, in the beginning, I noticed that I mentioned that you are a serial entrepreneur, which I would take that as that you've done many different endeavors. You started several businesses. Where did the desire to start your own business? I mean, you could have just went to work, went to college, got a job, had a career, that been a teacher or whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
Why didn't you choose that route? Why did you choose to do your own business?
I have worked at jobs, I've always worked. I started working as soon as I could, actually for your mom, tutoring down at the JFK. So I always had an interest in children. I went through the Gannon entrepreneurial class, and daycare was when I was 15 years old, that was my business that I came up with, because back then they didn't have second shift daycares, and I knew I was going to open the first one ever. And I probably wasn't the first one ever, but I did do exactly what I said I was going to do. So those kind of programs do work, because they really helped me direct my focus, and I actually followed through. A lot of us followed through with what we said we were going to do in those classes. But I was always a lightweight entrepreneur, even when I was a kid. My mom and your mom would tell me how I would go to school with candy and sell it. I always sold, when we had candy bar sales at church, I was always the one who sold the most. Like, I was always a person that was like real driven. So I knew it was always in me. And even when I did work, I was a therapist and behavioral consultant. So it was a lot of independent work. And I also was a supervisor. At my first real job, I just walked in the door as a supervisor. So I guess it was just in me. I'm a little bossy too. So when you bossy, you pretty much got to figure out something to do that you can
Where you can be the
run.
boss.
Yeah, where you can be the boss. When you bossy, you got to be a boss. So I just created a environment where I could do just that. So right now I have a daycare. I've been open and running for 6 years at the Booker T. Washington Center called Jumpstart Early Learning Center, and praise be to God that I got my certification and just walked into my 6th year. Just last month I got my certification. And then in the building that we're sitting in now, I'm one of the very few African Americans that have a location on State Street. I was going to turn this into a preschool and still plan to, but for now we do events here, and I run Grand Central events where I do events here and other places, parties, weddings, things like that. So, and on the side I do, some graphic designing for people as well. So pretty much stay busy and keep myself occupied, with all of the things that I'm doing. On top of that, doing a lot of work in the community with small businesses, a lot of pop-up shops, Juneteenth. I just do a lot in the community. Whatever I can touch that can help somebody else, I make sure that I get involved with.
What are some ups and downs? What are a few ups and downs of owning your own business?
You depend on other people a lot. So when you own your own business, you have to make sure that you have a sense of level-headedness. You have to have good customer service, because in the type of businesses that I run, I'm a service business. I'm not, somebody who just sits behind a computer all day. I actually interact with people on a daily basis. So you have to really learn how to be, level-headed, control your emotions. You have to know how to communicate with others. So, when you first get started in business and you're not used to doing that, that could be a hurdle at first that I had to overcome, was just learning how to communicate more effectively. And I would say that for any business owner, whether you interact with people on a daily basis or not, that's one hurdle you will face, that you got to know how to communicate. And that's something you got to consistently check yourself about, I would say.
When you say communicate, do you mean like one-on-one interaction with people, or like learn how to talk on the phone? What do you specifically?
With me, it's all of those things, because I have to know how to service my clients, which are my daycare students. I have to know how to interact with them, whether they're being good and using positive reinforcements, or even if they're having behavioral issues, giving them support on that via my background in being a therapist with children. I have to know how to communicate with the parents. Sometimes you don't get, every parent isn't nice. Some parents can be difficult, and you have to really know how to handle people in the correct manner. Even with my party business, I deal with a lot of different people from all different ethnicities. I mean, I get parties booked by every background, every ethnic background books with me, which I'm grateful for. But that also comes from being professional in my interactions with them, answering the phone when I'm on the phone with them, talking to them properly, when they meet me, greeting them properly, making sure that, I'm showing them a service with a smile. So, it's just, communicating is just a big thing when you're dealing with people and when you're in business. You got to know how to talk to people.
Okay. So in your background, you ran for school board in your city, in Erie.
Mm-hmm.
And why would you decide to, you already got a good life, like running businesses, your wife, got family. Why take on the responsibility of being on the school board?
At the time when I first ran for school board, I really didn't know anything about running for office. I ran in 2013. I didn't know anything about being on any board. I had no desire to be on any board. What I was doing was get out to vote. So, I was teaming up with Mr. Horton, both Andre and Gary, but me and Andre did a Rock the Vote over at East. You probably were there. And we started doing that Obama campaign and started working real hard in trying to get people out to vote, register to vote. And I started going in schools. This is before I was even on the school board. I started going in schools and registering kids to vote. And when I came out of one of the schools, somebody said to me, "You should run for school board." And it was literally 3 days before our petitions was due. So I had to think quick. And that weekend, there was a wine and conversations at the Booker T. Washington Center. And I went there, circulated my petition, and there was about 200 people there. Got all the registered voters, had a couple other people. We got back, had the petitions ready. Didn't know what I was really doing. I just knew that I was already in schools. I have children in school. And that's really, one of the main things is that I was experiencing what I was about to walk into with my own children and students that I work with. Because I worked with so many families as a therapist too, and I was in and out of schools as a therapist because I was also a consultant. So I was already kind of lightweight, in and out the schools on a weekly basis. I probably saw 5 to 6 clients at their school, helping their teachers or whoever, deal with their behavioral needs. So I started seeing a lot of different things and seeing where I could help or seeing where things can be improved or, making suggestions. So it was kind of a natural move for me.
Right. So what did you, when you look back at your time on the school board, what did you learn,
I had to learn how to deal with a lot of different personalities to make decisions, because when you're on a board, it's different than running your own business because you have 9 different people and administrators that you have to work with, whether you get along with them or not, whether they get along with you or not. You have to know how to come together for the greater good of what's going on in the schools. While I was on the board, I was able to do quite a few initiatives. I created the Diversity Inclusion Board with one of the administrators who now retired, B. Habersky. We created that board and I think your mom was even on that board when we first started it, which has now led to a diversity officer position, which Ken Nixon is in. That was a lot of long, hard work for myself, a lot of advocacy for it. It was something that was never before until I got on the board. I've advocated for the special needs students in the mental health SAP program, all those different things. I've been involved in all those conversations. The new police review board that we just started was something that I initiated. I got a call from the state, and they asked me to be a part of their board. I don't know how they got my name, but then that allowed me to present to Mr. Polito that we start our own police review board. So that came from me as well. And a lot of other things. We started doing a lot of things for the first time when I was on the board. I learned about, working through crisis situations while I was on the board. Schools closed. We went through a financial crisis where we were overlooked by the state. It was just a lot that I feel like I've been through. I feel like, I've been through enough to where I could step away now at this point because they are, moving in the right direction, and I feel confident about it. But I did have a lot of input on a lot of things, make the minority hiring, a lot of different things. I've also was the person who stepped in with the clearinghouse issues, had them start reviewing that, and was able to start retaining more students in our schools and that are into athletics, now that we got all those things together. So, I experienced a lot on this board. A lot of people don't understand what the school board does. So I did have to do a lot of communicating with parents and community members, taxpayers, and teaching them our role.
Right.
I really have done a lot of that over the years, which I think is important because they don't understand how powerful they can be if they would just only get involved. And that was one of my main goals, was to make sure parents got involved. I started a program called Better Together. We had Cliff Crosby and Jovan Johnson speak at, something that was never before, where, we had programs that literally tried to reach out to the community and get more input from them. I think now more than ever, the Erie School District has the community involved more than ever. And I don't brag and I don't talk about myself, but I know 100% this I was a catalyst in this occurring.
That's great stuff. So why do you feel like you have, you kind of answered this a little bit, but a great desire to help the community?
I just feel like, Erie is my hometown. It's where I live. It's where I have my businesses. It's where my kids are at. It's where my family is at. You know, all my aunts and uncles mostly live here. And I feel like, you know, if my kids plan to stay here, I need to make sure that, you know, it's a place that they really can thrive in. And I also have a heart for people and helping them. And that's just something that's in me, but I think it's in our whole family. You know, I'm always, you know, willing to help somebody else. It's just something I can't help. So
It's just in you to help
it's
people.
just in me to help people. And when I see a need, you know, just like with Juneteenth, they didn't do Juneteenth for years. I remember Juneteenth back when I was probably about 12 or 13. Didn't see it for years and brought it back, you know, about 6 years ago. You know, when I see that there's a gap, you know, in things that we need here, I like to be a part of initiating, you know, making it happen. Whether I don't always have to be in charge of it, but I definitely want to see things happen.
But you have the courage and because a lot of people have ideas, but they don't have the courage to
Yeah.
start them. So you're not afraid to start something
And follow through
to
with
follow
it.
follow
Yeah.
through with it.
I'm good at ideas and executing them. And even if somebody else takes it the next step further, I'm fine with that. But I just like to get the ball rolling.
Right. Now I know you're married, and this wasn't really on the script, but tell me about. I mean, being married. I mean, is there any advice that you have for people who are thinking about getting married? What's married life like? Maybe
Married
is it
life.
just a bed of roses, or what I mean, is it?
Married life is what you make it. It is not always, you know, what you see on the movies. You have to really know how to be committed, dedicated, and just really open. Um, you have to learn how to compromise. I think that's the biggest thing in marriage is compromising and communication. You already expect for the trust and loyalty to be there. I know a lot of times when, you know, we see on Facebook and people say, what's the most important thing in a relationship? And the first thing they say is trust and loyalty. Well, if you're in a relationship, you're already supposed to have established that trust and loyalty. So we're just gonna say that's already there.
Right.
So you have to definitely go beyond trust and loyalty. You have to be able to compromise. You have to be able to show each other attention, affection. Those are very important because a lot of times, you know, a broken marriage or relationship in general comes from people just not getting the proper attention that they need from their spouse or not being able to communicate with them effectively. So you have to be able to not only express your wants and needs, but you also have to be able to hear the wants and needs of your partner as well. And you have to respect it. You might not do everything they want or need because nobody is perfect, but you do have to show some respect to, you know, what your partner needs out of that relationship.
I know your husband does some great stuff in the community too. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, he's been a boxing coach for at least 15 years. He used to coach over at Bethesda. Then we, you know, worked with the school district for a while with him doing boxing. So now this is our home base for Erie Boxing Academy. He coaches kids. He's coaching them for free for years. He has 2 pro fighters at this point. They both turned pro this year. He's worked with children for over 20 years at Percy's house. Everybody knows Mr. Drew. Everywhere we go, they say, Mr. Drew, Mr. Drew. So, you know, he does a lot of work with children and in the community that goes unspoken. If you ever see on